Hey, welcome back to the channel, guys. Today we're talking about batteries and fuses. Pretty much how to size them, what's too big, what's too small, how do I know? To get into it, first thing we need to know is what equipment are we using. You need to know what size amps you're using, how many amps you're using. You need to know, are you using 1,000 watt that actually puts out 500 watts, or are you using a 1,000 watt that puts out 1,800 watts? That's a good question, because there's companies out there that will go either way. And to get the proper sizing on everything, you need to know what you're truly putting out of your equipment. You need to know, like I said, your wattage output, and you need to know what amperage draw your amplifiers are going to need. And once you have those answers, you can kind of start to piece together the correct sizes of the batteries and other pieces you may need for your electrical. Before I go farther on that, I kind of want to explain how electricity in a car audio system pretty much works, and I've had it explained to me a few different ways, and the best way that really stuck with me was, my dad told me the best. It was compare it to water. Okay, electricity is just like water. Your alternator is a pump, pumps the water, pumps the electricity. Okay, your power wire is your hoses, your tubes that move your water. Okay, bigger tubes, more water can flow through. Your pond is your battery bank. Okay, you want your battery bank to be big enough that your alternator and your hoses can fill it, right, and keep it full. But you don't want it too small that it's no good for anything, because then it'll be just drained super quick and then refilled really quick, and it's just up, down, up, down, up, down, and that's not good. What you really want to do is you can look at like I did the math, and I found out from Excess Power that their batteries, no matter what size you get, the batteries are pretty much rated at 3 watts for every cranking amp. So you can do the math. If you have a 2,000 watt amp and a 600 watt door amp, right, divide them by 3, and that gets you about, what was that? That was 870 cold cranking amps. So now you need about 900 cold cranking amps to run that stereo at a true 2,500 watts, through the car. So what you can do there, you can go get the big alternator. You can go get the big hoses. You can go get a big pond, right? And that's all fine and good, and your amplifiers are sucking the water out, okay? So what you got to do is you got to make sure that your pump, your hoses, and your battery bank are big enough to feed your amplifiers without ever running out of water. I mean, you can obviously go and overbuild the pond. You can obviously have over storage and stuff like that. There's nothing wrong with that. It's just not necessary for a lot of people, and it takes up a lot more space. If you go with an older school, like even still like an AGM battery, they still get very heavy. I think the biggest one Excess Power makes is a D7500, and that thing is over 100 pounds. So, lugging that around, that's some weight. So you don't need to go with the biggest and baddest every time. And the way you can tell what you need is by that formula with the 3 watts per cranking amp. So I know that I need about 900 for that stereo. Now you got to keep in mind that your car does take amperage to run. That's why the alternator's on the car. It's not for you to add a stereo to it. Every car, depending on the electronics in it, it depends. It takes like 50 to 80 amps of current to run at the correct, correct wattage and have everything be happy. So you need to add that to your metric. So you have that 870 plus, say, 60, so now you're at 930. So now you need a battery that's really probably like 950 to 1,000 cranking amps. You can do that with either 2 batteries. You can do that with a big alternator and a battery that is just about the right size, because then it should never really drain that hard, or for a situation like me where I'm on a stock alternator, what I did is big wire, big hose, get as much out of that pump as I can, and I got a battery back there that's good for the voltage and the wattage that I'm going to be drawing through my 2 amps, and I have what Excess Power calls a super bank. It's essentially a capacitor, and not like your Walmart tube bullshit capacitors that are nothing but a paperweight and don't do anything. It actually is, the one I have is 150 farads. I think they start at 75 and they go up to like 900. So they're ridiculous. If you know anything about farads and capacity like that, that's a lot. That's a lot of that's a lot of stored energy. But the way that works is when your battery is full, the capacitor is just sitting there charging, okay? It's just hanging out. You start beating on your stereo, you know, it kind of goes down, you refill, kind of go down, and kind of when your voltage stops coming back, what this does, essentially opens a floodgate, and it dumps a bunch of water into your pond, okay? Tries to pick your pond level back up so that it doesn't sink down as hard. You know, essentially all that, what it really does is it gives your alternator that split second it needs to try and catch up electrically, you know. And if you are at a situation where you're like, hey man, I have a battery, I have this, I have that, and my voltage keeps falling, you may be at the extent of your alternator. You know, if you have an aftermarket alternator and that's not the problem, you probably need bigger capacity. You're probably filling the battery as much as you can, but you're also sucking it dry right away. You know, with the amplifiers you're using, you know, you got to make sure everything is working in harmony with this. You know, and then same thing for your fusing. You know, I've seen a lot of people wonder what size fusing to use. Some people don't use fusing. I don't recommend that. Some competitions don't require it. I think that's stupid. It's a fire hazard and a safety thing at the end of the day. Let alone if you don't want to put fuses in or think it doesn't look good. I mean, it'll keep your car from burning down, and that's the end of the day. But to properly size them, you can do, if you know what voltage your car's running at, like say your car runs at 14 volts on the nose, right? And you have a 1400 watt amp. 1400 divided by 14. That gives you 100. That's 100 amps that it will take at that voltage to make 1400 watts. So if that's your amplifier and that's the number you come up with, if you end up with, like I said, 100 amps, I'd put a fuse that's maybe 125. You know, you don't want to max it out just because if it ever does push that, you don't want it to blow the fuse right away. What the fuse is there for is if something shorts and something goes way wrong, it's meant to pop the fuse there so that the wire doesn't turn into a fuse. And you actually, I've seen it before where the power wire has melted through the insulation in a vehicle, like under like the back seat where you pull it up and there's that sound deadener. I've seen it where someone, instead of running 0 gauge, ran 2 4 gauges, and both 4 gauges were melted into the deadener. So again, proper size hoses, proper size pump, proper size pond for the proper size draw, and you will never have a problem. Your voltage should stay steady, and it should be smooth sailing. You should be able to sit here and beat on it for hours outside of the heat and other elements, but your electrical should never falter. It should be 100% all the time. If it's not, you have a weak link in your electrical, or you have something focused in the wrong spot. So with that being said, that's kind of what I got for you guys. If you guys learned something, enjoyed, if you have any other questions, drop them down below. Please like, subscribe, and I'll catch you guys in the next one.